Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to another session of the East Africa Building Capacity for Circular Economy Innovation series. This is the fourth of a six-part series, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this event today. My name is Daniel Adeni, and I'm a professional officer with Eclair Africa. And on behalf of our team at Eclair Africa, I want to welcome you very specially to this webinar session. The East Africa Building Capacity for Circular Economy Innovation series is co-convened by Eclair Africa and Africa Circular Economy Network, and also as well as Stellenbosch Lodge Lab. And it's a program that is being funded by the Embassy of Finland in South Africa. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this event for today. And the title of today's event is Building the Circular Human Capital. Inspiration starts as early as kindergarten. Before I go ahead to talk about some of the things we need to talk about, it is very important that we make it clear about the webinar protocols today. The session today is being recorded, and by participating in today's webinar, you are given the consent to be recorded. We want to implore you to make use of the chat to post your questions and pose your questions to our panelists of today, which I'm going to invite very soon, and just make it engaging. We have decided to register this event as a meeting rather than a webinar, so that we can have an engagement and we can discuss with our audience today. So I want you to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the session with us. Today we've got panelists that can do justice to the topic of circular economy, of circular human capital that we need. We've talked about circular economy severally, and we know that this is what we need to focus on to move away from the linear way of thinking, the linear way of doing things. And how can we actually do that without emphasizing human capital? It is very important. For instance, I take the example of design thinking, which is very important in circular economy. When we talk about design thinking, then it means that we cannot do this without actually creating new knowledge, new ways of thinking, new ways of designing. That is where human capital is very, very important. And so I want to urge you to basically relax with us and enjoy the session with us. Before we go ahead, I want us to participate in what I call, or what we all know as a Zoom shower. So I'm going to pose a question, and you can think about it for 30 seconds, and after 30 seconds, you can post your response to the question on the chat. So just hold on, even when you hear the question, hold on and just type the question, but don't send it yet. After 30 seconds, you send it. So the question is, where do you get all of your circular economy knowledge from? Where do you get all of your circular economy knowledge from? Or to put it differently, where do you access new knowledge and skills around circular economy? Just hold on, don't post yet. I'm going to take the question again. Where do you access new knowledge and skills around circular economy? Let's give it 15 more seconds, and then you can post. Let me also try and type mine. So I think I want to put a limit to the number of words you can use. The maximum is 3 words. So if you do get your knowledge from 2 places, then you can say X and Y. No more than 3 words, please. I think we can post now. Great. I can see some people posting. I see Chris here saying it's about network. You can't overemphasize the importance of network. Someone posted, says, World Wide Web, www. Great. Prof. Chris Gordon says peer-reviewed literature. That's very nice. Networking, it's coming on nicely. Can I see some others? Someone says partners, journals. Paul is saying LinkedIn colleagues, which is LinkedIn colleagues, okay, which is basically about network also. Matthew, advocacy. Tobacco says social media. Gabriel is agreeing with Prof. Gordon, he's saying from publications. I see Prof. Linda Godfrey also saying from journals. I could see that we've got academics in the house today. That's great. I think, so these are the places where we access new knowledge about circular economy, which is very interesting to see and to note. And I think we want to do justice to this topic today in that how can we facilitate the development of the skills, knowledge of those competencies that we need for circular economy transition in Africa. And we've got a panel of experts in the house that will do justice to that. We've got Omar Al-Saleh that's going to give us a presentation, and we've got Dr. Nate Baker and also Professor Christopher Gordon. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Omar Al-Saleh to give us his presentation on circular economy and his work around the circular economy and also building human capital. Omar, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm just sharing my screen. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Daniel, and thanks, Zawet, for the invite. I'm really happy to join and share my experiences along with you professionals.
Omar, can you do a full slide mode?
Yes, 1 second.
Great.
It's full slide, yeah? Okay. So I'm going to be presenting as being the certified circular economy specialist by the Circular Economy Institute, and I'm an official ambassador for them. So I'll be presenting the Circular Economy Institute mission and its non-profit arm mission and impact. So the Circular Economy Institute has set a full knowledge base on Ellen MacArthur Foundation and other circularity principles. Just to give a briefing of what circular economy is and what linear economy is. The linear economy is take, make, use, and waste conventional, traditional economy, which most of our economies are based on. And the issues from that is resource scarcity, environmental stress, lost value, and also there is no tracking of the value chain impact or even the supply chain impact on the environment. The alternative is circular economy, which enables the recovery and the reuse of materials and products so that you don't have waste anymore to deal with or the burden of mitigating that waste. So the management of waste is no longer there, or at least it's reduced. The economic opportunity with the yearly 80% of unrecovered materials, okay? So that's how much we can recover. And it all depends on vital strategies and principles. The designing out of waste. So the design phase is very critical for that to happen. The recovery and reverse logistics is very critical for that to be enabled and fostered. And also taking note that our nature, our ecosystem, natural ecosystem, our planet is actually circular. So we have to utilize these characteristics and know that we have a lot of opportunities to close the loop within our systems, within our economies, and avoid waste and its negative externalities. We have a lot of examples designing products for circularity from Nike, from big industries, Philips, and we're going to give some examples soon. Just to shed some light on the circular economy in an easy fashion, we all know about the butterfly diagram, which explains and separates and divides the economy into two parts, technical materials and the biological materials. So we have technical nutrients and we have biological nutrients. It shows what should be prioritized in order to make sure that we optimize a closed loop. We want to avoid any leaks to go into the ecosystem, into the biosphere, into the environment. We want to avoid landfill. So we have to do our best to make sure that the materials are going in loops and being reused and the maximum value at all times. That's the point of circular economy. As we can see, technical loops, it involves maintenance and repair to prolong the lifespan of a material, the reuse and redistribution. There are a lot of schemes where you can do that, reselling, sharing, renting. And then if it's damaged, you should repair it. If it's unable to be repaired or refurbished, then you have to remanufacture, where you disassemble and manufacture it again to restore its value or to upgrade it. And last but not least, which should be the last option, which is recycling, and not downcycling, upcycling if possible. And when it comes to biological loops, we are talking about cascadings. So if you have a bio-based material in your economy, that can be cascaded, used for a different purpose, repurposed for something lower. For example, wood from cardboards can be used for furniture. Extraction of biochemical feedstock to produce energy, okay, for electricity. Anaerobic digestion and composting. And aerobic composting is very critical and is very much needed. And all depends on the design and what you incorporate in the economy. If you incorporate bio-based materials, if you incorporate recycled materials, if you incorporate the safe materials, then you will be on track for circularity. If you have an issue with the design, then that's where the hassle and the challenge starts. And farming and collection is also very critical. A lot of things can be upcycled in the agricultural practices. It can be reincorporated into the biosphere safely. And the last option should be energy recovery and landfills. An example is repack. I don't want to shed much light on it. So what they do is when you order something, you can choose the packaging to be repacked. So it's a multi-use package. It's not a single-use package, which you can utilize, and you can send it back to the post box. You don't pay for the recovery. They take it back and they give it for another product again for another customer. If you choose that, you have a deposit scheme, for example, which you can return. It's cheaper. It's incentivized in a way that you can choose this packaging instead of using single-use plastics or packaging. The appearance of circular economy movement started in the 1980s, 1990s. As you can see, 2010, Ellen MacArthur then has set the foundation. 2012, McKinsey, and also Circular Economy Institute and Circular Economy Club has fostered it. And 2015, the European movement of circular transition has started, European Union Circular Economy Package. Circular Economy Institute offers the global certification program for circular skills. And as Anna Terry, the founder of Circular Economy Institute, has said, we have to rethink our systems. We have to change. The current circular trend that we are talking about should be thought over again. And we need to stop associating circular economy to something that's not circular. We've seen the IPCC report and how less light has been shed on circular economy and the transition of circular economy, and how important it is to climate change and other stuff. Not much has been put forth in the report. So we have to really reflect on that. There is a lot of lack of knowledge about circular economy. We offer certificates, trainings, alumni network, which with huge professionals with vast experiences who can support us in different aspects of circular economy. Of course, the training has been fostered for a lot of people. Harvard Graduate School, City of London, United Nations One Planet. You can go more into details in the website. Circular Economy Club is the non-profit arm of Circular Economy Institute. Also, the founder is Anna Terry. She's amazing because she has said this to help people who cannot maybe start up a circular economy movement, to somehow get all the enthusiasts and all those who are interested in circular economy, all the circularists, all the circular economy freaks, let's put it this way, to all join up in a network to share their experiences from all sectors, from all aspects, agriculture, cities, industries, so that we try to close the loops. We try to convince the governments of the importance of this. We create the awareness. And that's the whole point of circular economy clubs. So we have 280 chapters, 1,200 workshops have been done, and it's free to join, by the way. So you can start up your own circular economy club in your own city. So go on the website and apply. And these are some examples. And currently, I'm going to be leading the Circular Economy Club in Jordan, in Amman. And we're going to try to somehow get all the cities on board so that we try to move and translate the circular economy on ground. and not just lip service as it's happening everywhere. We see circular economy put everywhere, but the principles and their true meaning is not being implemented. Some of the events that are there from Circular Economy Club: Global Screening, Closing the Loop, Circular Economy Mapping Week, Circular Cities Week, and the Global DIF Viewing. It's very interesting. It helps a lot. It actually, there's a lot of support, technical support that comes when you register and open a club. That's endless. And there are a lot of people within the alumni and the network of circular economy clubs that can help you have a successful club. The importance for cities to enable infrastructure. I want to speak from Jordan, Amman perspective. Just go through it fast. Cities only cover 2% of the world's land surface, but activities within their boundaries take 75% of the planet's materials resources. This is very important and alarming. With the expansion of urban areas, we're expecting to increase up to 89 billion tons by 2050. Imagine, recycling is not the ultimate solution. Enabling circular supply chains through infrastructure is very important. Just to give you some of the key concepts that I took from the Circular Economy Specialist Certificate from the CII, which is very, very important. First of all, the design phase is vital for full-scale circularity. You have to design for durability, repair, repurpose, maintenance, recovery. If the design doesn't allow that, then there is no point. Circularity cannot work easily. Importance of after-sale services and technical support, because we're talking about repair, maintenance, prolonging, giving a second life to a product. Material and waste definition within the policies with governments might define something as waste, which means it has to go to disposal. This has to be redefined. It's very important. Separation is vital. You cannot have biological materials and technical materials together. You have to separate them. If there's no separation at the end of the cycle, you cannot then deal with the materials and products. Even at the beginning, at the design, there should be some separation, or a very clear separation, so that you have a proper circularity scheme and strategies implemented. Importance of reverse logistics. If you don't have a take-back scheme, where you guarantee, even if you have created or you're marketing a bio-based product, if it goes to the user and then he throws it, no point. But if you track it, if you have a scheme where you can take it back, you rent it, for example, or you give him a take-back deposit, where you take money back if you send it back to me as a provider, then I deal with it. I either repurpose it, reuse it, or sell it again, or refurbish it. Then you will guarantee that you prolong the lifespan. Recycling should be the last resort. Upcycling is important, which means to get something into a better quality product. Downcycling, which is the most common recycling, is to get it to a lower quality product. We need to restore the value, the high value of a product, to make sure that it's properly exhausted, and then we look for downcycling. Exposing the competitive edge of circular alternatives is very critical, because a lot of companies don't know that circular alternatives are there and that there is a huge return on investment. Economic feasibility. The cost of a product, a new product, from extraction, energy, resources, is more expensive than having something that can be reused and repurposed. And they can benefit. They can rent it more than once. They can sell it more than once. They can retrieve some of the parts. If it's a modular product, you can take some of the parts and use it again for another product. So you can save on raw materials. There are different ways and strategies. The indirect cost implication is as important as the direct cost. Yes, there is a direct cost, compliance cost, but there's indirect cost, reputation. Like we said, if you save here, you take this. If 20 times multi-use is better than one-time use, so you can sell it more than once, the same product in good condition. Refurbishing is less expensive than manufacturing all over again. Sector-based circular models, industrial symbiosis. It's important to have a successful city scan, to make sure that you somehow categorize sectors. A plastic industry, you can have a scheme of circular economy and model, which can help them to deal with their products and even share equipment or share some of the raw materials to reduce the consumption. Industrial symbiosis is similar, where a waste of one company could be an input for another. E-platforms, where you can share equipment, you can rent out equipment, you can set out for refurbishment, recovery, or whatever. Incentives for circular innovations is very critical. We have to lower the taxes. Importance of EPR, extended producer responsibility. The taxation polluters pay. Environmental management tax should be incorporated for those who actually pollute, who actually produce non-circular products. Circular schemes should suit the people's needs and standards of living. This is very critical. Amman in Jordan, it's a developing country. Standard of living is very high. People can't spend a lot, so we have to. That's an incentive. So we have to get a lot of circular stuff into their minds on how they can save up money. They can reuse things. They can get refurbished furniture. They can get their furniture to be refurbished instead of selling it or changing it. We need to switch customer focus from ownership to use. A person doesn't buy the laptop for the laptop. He buys it to use it for presentations, for meetings. So maybe he can rent it out. That's cheaper for him, and you still can own it. It's less burden for you, less waste, less extended producer responsibility, and you can benefit more. It's a free burden scheme for both. There's a lot of benefits. Time doesn't allow me to set it outright. Takeaways: circular washing needs to stop. We speak about greenwashing. If you have a bio-based material and recycled materials, it's not enough unless you recover it back into the economy. If no recovery is there, you're not moving circular. It's very important for cities. Stakeholder mapping, comprehensive baseline study, a circular mapping will set the roadmap for your city. Recreating the wheel is a waste, but redirecting and rethinking is key. Integrating and networking. You have to get everyone involved, government and decision makers, circular accelerators, industries, entrepreneurs, research academia, and the civil society organizations. This way, we will move circular. This is an example of a city scan by Circular Economy, one of the pioneers in doing, who's collaborating with you on environment. You can also contact them for circular mapping. How to make the most of CEC and CEI. We have a lot of courses on the website. Please go in and check it out. I want to just give you a glimpse that there is an ISO standard for circular economy guidelines on business models and value chains. And this is incorporated in the circular economy specialist course, which sheds light on setting indicators for industries, because they all speak about how to track the environmental implication, the positive implication of circular economy. And when it comes to climate change and other stuff, there is a standard that's being set with very clear key indicators for industries and cities so that they can reflect upon and you can measure their performance. Please visit Circular Economy Institute and you can use this link. I will share it now in the chat box to get also the discounted price for any of the Circular Economy Institute specialists or instructors courses to utilize from. Hand in hand, we can do good to the environment, not just reduce harm. Thank you. Sorry for taking long.
Thank you so much, Omar, for that. I think I'm thinking to myself, and I think I'll get to that question later. And maybe you can begin to think about it when we ask the question, like, as a business entrepreneur, what will I stand to benefit? What am I going to learn if I say I'm joining the Circular Economy Club, or maybe I'm doing the certification? It's interesting to see that there are now certifications on circular economy coming up, which it is good. But then as a business entrepreneur, what do I stand to gain? What am I going to learn? I think if you can begin to think about that and the response and prep, so that when we're having discussion, also, I think at this time, I want to shift to our next speaker, and I want to invite Dokane Perka to speak about the Africa Leadership University. We know that it's a university in Africa that is positioning itself to be a leader when it comes to thoughts and knowledge around circular economy in Africa. And so we want to hear from them. I want to see their unique approach on how they do this, and how they are contributing to this, to the human capital in Africa around circular economy. Over to you, Dokane.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dorkhanay Paikar, and as Daniel explained, I work for the African Leadership University. I will be discussing with you what we do at the African Leadership University with regards to the circular economy program that we're running in a collaboration with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And then I will be discussing what we see in our work with the students, what skills we see what competences do they display, and what might be necessary for the transition of the continent. And then lastly, I will shift quickly to what I see in practice in the country where I live, Mozambique. So without further ado, I'll start. So first of all, at the African Leadership University, we have currently a funding from the MAVA Foundation in collaboration with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for approximately a year, where we have the opportunity to integrate circular economy in our teaching and also some of our student venture projects. And as a new, something which is very new to the African Leadership University is the research section. I'll quickly show our team. So this is the core team of the Circular Economy program at ALU. We have Zubair, he is our sponsor and project owner. We have Arsh, he's the program manager and the entrepreneurship lead. Myself, the Circular Economy teaching and curriculum development lead. And then we have our colleague Alka, who's leading the research projects. To quickly look at the different focus areas, we have, first of all, the main priority area for us, of course, as an educational institute is the curriculum development and teaching. What I mainly focus on is, on one hand, integrating circular economy in the existing degree programs that we have, and at the same time also integrating and developing new courses for the new degree programs that we're developing, because we're right now going through a shift and we're changing our educational program entirely. So for that, we've also worked a lot on basically integrating circular economy in every program and module as much as possible. The second priority area is student ventures. We really support and applaud students' entrepreneurship abilities and encourage them to start their own ventures. And for that, we also fund and sponsor certain projects. Students can apply with their ideas, and then based on the viability of their projects, we will give them a small seed funding. Priority number 3 is a really important and exciting one, which is the research and knowledge creation. Currently, we're running 12, if I'm not mistaken, 12 applied research projects with our internal colleagues and some research associates that have been hired specifically for this priority area. We have a range of different topics from agriculture to industrial symbiosis to built environment, all very exciting. And last, definitely not the least, is partnerships. We're working very hard on creating partnerships to accelerate the implementation for CE, such as today's event, working together with ICLE, the African Circular Economy Network, the African Circular Economy Alliance. We're also becoming a partner with working together with CITRA. So we're trying to make sure that we're not only focusing on the work within ALU, but also within the continent. So these are the 4 research areas. And then coming to the topic of what skills are necessary for circular economy transition and what we see at ALU. I think the presentation of Omar was very interesting on, first of all, what is the circular economy and what is necessary for this transition, because I can link to some of the points that he made. What I first of all want to mention is that at ALU, we have a very privileged position where we can actually accept some of the top-notch students in the continent. These are students that majority come in with a scholarship, so they're already outperformance, and in that aspect, I think they are representative in one way, but in the other way, they have certain skills that are not generally what you see in the different countries. So they are outperformers. We have a new educational program that is focusing very specifically on the 21st century skills and including the soft skills and the technical skills that are necessary. And if we could look at these 2 aspects, we see that although our students have very strong soft skills that are necessary for the transition, and also based on the different degree programs, they also have certain technical skills. We do see that the majority of the projects, ventures, and solutions that our students come with are still focused mainly on waste management, which is also a bit of the general trend that we see in the continent when we're talking about circular economy. I think Omar specifically mentioned a few times in his presentation that design is key. And digital technology is also very important for the full transition towards circular economy. And I think there's a lot to win on that aspect within ALU, but also outside of ALU. So I would say design and digital technology needs to be adapted and included more in both the educational programs that we're running, and also from what the students are starting up with their ventures. Then looking at the picture outside of ALU, as I mentioned, I live in Mozambique, and as I said, ALU has a very privileged position. That is not the case for a majority of educational institutes throughout the continent, and whether we're talking about the higher education or the high schools or the primary schools. I think the approach to education is very important and is very crucial. The difference in the education approach on the continent with regards to some of the areas in the world that are outperforming on circular economy is quite evident. I think the skills that are necessary for the transition of circular economy are, a lot of them are technical skills that for sure needs a lot of attention and capacity building for these technical skills, but we should also not forget the soft skills when we're talking about skills such as critical thinking, leadership, management skills, teamwork, and these skills are quite essential and missing at the same time. And for my personal view, if we really want to make this transition successful, we need the necessary institutional support. Without the institutional support, educational institutes will not or cannot independently change their educational programs and focus on these skills. So yeah, I think one of the questions for this series was also what is necessary, and in my opinion, that would be definitely one of the most essential aspects. Yeah, with that said, I think that's all I wanted to share with this presentation, and I'm very happy to answer some of the questions.
Great, Dr. Nee, for that. I think I particularly like your emphasis on the soft skills. Of course, the technical skills cannot be taken for granted. They are very, very crucial and critical for circularity transition. But in terms of soft skills, there is a tendency for us to, if care is not taken, to underemphasize it. And I can see the nexus between human capital and also even social capital. We've been here, and when we started, we asked the question, where do you get all the knowledge from circular economy, the knowledge and skills and things like that? And from the chat box, you could see people saying it's from network, it's on LinkedIn and things like that. And so there is a nexus here between human capital and social capital that is emerging for circularity transition, which is actually very, very interesting to see and to note. I want to urge our participants to please drop question on the chat box for either Omar and Dr. Nee, and then we can pick that up later. But then I want to invite our last speaker for today, Professor Chris Gordon, who is a professor at the Institute for Environment and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana, to enlighten us about, of course, we realize, and I think the question we posed to Prof is that, of course, we can see that there are, in terms of thinking, that there is a possibility or tendency of our universities producing thinkers. But then in terms of doers and people who are basically practically doing things and actioning things, to see that we actually see the results of all the frameworks and the policy briefs and things like that that we have put together. It is not there. So how can we move how can the university environment or academics move from creating thinkers to then producing more actors and doers? That is a question that we have posed to Prof, and I want to invite Prof to please respond to that and give us some highlight based on his experience. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much for that. And as I said before we started, the basic premise that universities in Africa are producing thinkers is something that I would dispute. And I'm saying this from the viewpoint of our contribution as a continent towards global assessments, towards cutting edge science and knowledge. And this is a legacy. It's a legacy of our educational system, which values by rote learning and passing of exams beyond innovation and creative thought. So the framing that I would like to use is, how do we get away from that theoretical book knowledge, which has produced so many policies and fantastic documents from Africa, which are basically useless in terms of changing and making transition for the continent. Now, I'm saying this in regard to where we want to be as a continent. So the discussion is actually beyond the circular economy, though I will address that. Several of the speakers have spoken about the competencies, the skills, and the attitudes that are needed. So I would say you have to come in with the correct mindset. And given that we are dealing with material that has been prepared a certain way, one of the first things that the universities need to do is help our students unlearn all they have done before. They need to change their mindsets. They need to be flexible. They need to be open-minded. They need to feel the space that they can challenge their lecturers, that business as usual has not worked. And it is they, the younger generation, that is going to effect that change, that transition needed, that will lead to transformation of the continent. So if you consider a document like the African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and you look at what that document wants Africa to be, and you ask ourselves, what are we doing now in 2022, that in 41 years, I think that's right, yes, 41 years, Africa would have changed. Now, in 41 years, our undergraduate students will be in their 60s. How are we preparing them? How are we preparing them differently? Or is it the same old, same old? Now, the African Leadership University has mentioned that they are lucky in that they have a certain caliber of students who apply. But is that critical mass sufficient to effect change on the continent-wide basis? So the first thing we need to do is at least upscale and outscale the best practice that we have. So we have that body of human capacity. Now, it's not easy to create that alternate worldview, especially in young people who have been indoctrinated in a first-class degree is the target, as opposed to the knowledge that one acquires and the skills. Again, the reference has been made to soft skills needed. So even though Ghana has a policy of what is known as MINT, So we don't talk about waste. We talk about materials in transition, that anything from one activity should be the raw material for another activity. How is it put in practice? And the problem basically is that we do not train our students to approach problems with a holistic mindset. How are they seeing the big picture? The problems that surround the implementation of the circular economy in practice fall under what are known as wicked problems. Problems that are so complicated that attempting to solve one part of it sometimes creates a bigger problem somewhere else. So, for example, taking a city, you improve access to the central business district by improving the road infrastructure, but you don't handle the issue of the waste accumulation that will emanate from having larger numbers of people in that area at any one given time. But we don't train our students, we don't train our architects, planners to look at that big picture. So we need to be able to remove those blinkers over their eyes so they can see wide. The knowledge has been mentioned is available, but there are knowledge gaps. And I think one of the things that this particular group ACE can do is try to identify where those knowledge gaps. So we're not just training our students in doing, but how can we find out new areas, things to do with community knowledge or indigenous knowledge in terms of how they used to manage. How do we address the issues of data, implication of policies and governance? How do we look at assessment and evaluation methodologies to see if what we are introducing is something that is viable and, more important, sustainable? So universities, as I say, need to change their approach. They need to have, I've mentioned holistic thinking already. They need to put in instill in the students how to find information and knowledge, how to analyze and critically assess that information. And very importantly, the ability to communicate what they have found to different audiences. So it's not just peer-to-peer communication. They need to be able to speak to different stakeholders on the ground. They need to respect that there's knowledge outside academia which is valuable and useful, and they need to be able to incorporate and give proper attribution to that knowledge. So we're talking about things like lifelong learning. We're talking about transdisciplinary approaches to education. We're talking about understanding the need for justice, need for equity. And when I talk about equity, we're talking about contextual, procedural, distributional, environmental, and intergenerational equity. So this ties into needing to have a long-term view of what they are doing. Unfortunately, many of the donors that Africa seems to need to depend on to carry out research are all short-term. So we need to move away from project thinking to program thinking. And I'll end by saying we also need to consider how the SDGs tie into circular economy, how we tie circular economy into systems ecology, and look beyond the SDGs to TWI 2050, the world in 2050. Some of us are likely not to be around, but the younger generation will be, and they need to carry the baton forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Professor Gordon. Like they say where I come from, they say in Nigeria that it is deep. Your message to us today is very deep in terms of changing the mindset. And I think I'll come back to that. But I want to go back to Omar now. The question I asked before, because we have a program that we are implementing as part of the program, as part of the East Africa program, which is trying to incubate entrepreneurs and to also provide a mentorship platform for them, and also provide ways, platform for them to learn more. So when you talk about the Circular Economy Club and the circular and the certification that you talked about, like from the business perspective, from an entrepreneur perspective, if an entrepreneur is coming on board and he's probably thinking, what am I going to be able to learn from it? How is it going to help my business? Can you please shed more light on what that offers young startups and businesses?
Thank you, Daniel. So the thing is, in most of the global scale projects, what they do is they always have an acceleration program where incubators are there, where entrepreneurs are involved. And it's all about the theoretical technical concepts being translated into business. So that's why environment is no longer being marketed as just, oh, let's protect the environment. No, environment is money. Waste is not waste. Waste is money. So when we talk about business and circular economy, when you do open a CEC, when you do get a certificate, you get the know-how, the knowledge, you get the design concepts, you get the principles that will set your foundation right towards circularity. And closed loop systems will become more viable, more dominant. It is viable, but more apparently viable and more dominant. So entrepreneurs, when they do get these certificates, when they do foster circular economy clubs, when they have this huge local networking with experts, they will have a lot of interdisciplinary approaches from different people, from different sectors, and there were innovation ideas will pop up. And that's very critical, only if it's very critical to do a mapping, to do a baseline study, to know where you can do your business. Don't just throw yourself in the market and say, I'm gonna do circular design products. I'm gonna help industries. Which industry actually has a huge potential, which is the most critical one currently. Start with the most critical one and go to the lowest. Because the most critical one, the one which has so much potential, so much resources involved in their process, for example, or even in the city, there is specific supermarkets, big malls that are dealing with a lot of product that can be somehow brought back and given to smaller supermarkets with lower prices. So can you give consultancy services? Can you give design concepts of new products? That all depends on the opportunities available and your research in the market. If you don't do your research and baseline study, and that will only help you if you know the concepts of circular economy, if you know the strategies of circular economy, if you know the different type of models, circular economy models, business models, that's what will allow you to think where to search and what is available. If you don't have those basics and foundations, you will be just touching on the surface of a huge sea that is endless and so deep, and you will get lost. So that's the whole point of certifications. As Dr. Chris mentioned, it's very critical to have lifelong learning. Yes, we appreciate the academics, the academia, and the higher education certificates, but you need to upskill. You need to learn soft skills, as also Pai mentioned, because when you are approaching industries and people and governments, you need to have the soft skills to approach them. because they are biased. They are biased to their ideas. They might not believe in what you have. So how to approach them? Soft skills are needed. So all these are incorporated in entrepreneurship. So if you do get the certificate, you upskill yourself with skills, soft skills, you also search and learn and network, you will get to a really good business model or opportunity that you can foster. And accelerators and incubators from around the local market can help doing that if you have a solid idea.
Great. Thank you for that. I think I can also relate with that because it's also our experience with the entrepreneurs that we are working with. We've seen situations where basically entrepreneurs are basically working around the circular economy, but they've not been able to think through how their work relates to the circular economy. So providing that kind of platform can also, I think, help them to understand the circular economy better and how their work actually contributes to the circular economy. So thank you for that. I want to go to Dokane now. When Prof was reflecting, I could see some things that Prof was talking about and what ALU is presently doing in terms of that mindset shift, shifting the mindset of people. And I want to ask the question to you, or pose the question to you, in terms of the people that you attract to ALU, are they, when they come to ALU, do they already have that kind of mindset shift? Or is it something that you try to inculcate in them, and that maybe sets your approach and the way you train the people apart?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And it's a very good question because it's one of the points that I did not cover in my short presentation, is the fact that actually what we see is that a lot of our students already have the right mindset. A lot of our students have already have identified the necessity and the need for changing the systems. By the way, I'm sorry if my connection is a bit bad, just let me know. But so we see that the mindset is already there. What is missing is the skills, and the skills that the professor was also discussing. As I mentioned, the ALU students that we see are outperformers, but indeed the critical thinking, the systems thinking, all these other skills on a larger context are not well represented in the continent. But thank God our students, I've been having very inspirational conversations with students that have picked waste in their own street and have created new innovative products with them. A solar lamp to be able to study, or a radio to be able to listen to the news or connect with others. They're very, very eager to learn. They're very innovative in their thinking. And that's really, for us working at ALU, very inspirational to see. And in general, I think the continent is very well familiar with the concepts of circular thinking, of reusing materials as long as possible. This is something that we don't need to import from the West thinking. I think actually Africa has a very good strong position in actually being the one showcasing these skills and mindsets to the rest of the world. So yeah, to answer your question, we are, thank God, blessed with having these mind shifts already in our students. What is missing is the skills immersion that they need. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Great. Yeah, I think it does. It's good to learn that. I want to go back to Prof now, and I see a conundrum here, especially in terms of people who have already been. I think the question was asked, was sent directly to me, and I'm going to reflect on that and use it to ask a question. I see a conundrum here in terms of people who have already been trained using this theory. I mean, we're saying that we need to shift away from theory, but then we now have people that are sitting maybe at the top who have decision-making power. but then they have been trained on this theory, then they don't have all these mindset shifts that we're talking about. So how do we begin to empower them to initiate this change that we're talking about? I'm talking about people who have been trained using this theory, maybe whose mind, who do not have all these necessary skills or the mindset shift that we're talking about, but they have this decision-making power by courtesy of the fact that maybe of the position they hold in the society or in government. How then do we empower them? How do we get to them to start initiating this change that we talk about, Prof?
Thank you for the question. I know there's a couple of questions in the chat, but let me deal with this because it's an important issue. And this is a problem I've had with many of our programs of capacity building, which focus exclusively on early career researchers, doctoral students, and so forth. Because my argument has been that you train up or expose these young, very intelligent people to new ways of doing things, that you put them in an old environment where the people, as you said, who take the decisions, the people who push for promotions and so forth, do not value or even understand what is going on. Now, the long-term solution, of course, is that most of the old dogs will die sooner or later, but we can't wait for those people to die. We need to also try and address some of their deficiencies in outlook. They may not agree with some of the approaches because they've been doing this for 30, 35 years, but at least they'll know where the young people are coming from. So, for example, you have somebody who's doing some research, let's say isotope analysis on shells, but at the same time wants to engage with the local community on issues of livelihoods. And the old professor in chemical oceanography would say, why are you wasting your time doing that? But to understand the whole dynamic of the situation, you need also the human perspective. So all I'm saying is that the old dogs among us also need to be trained, but you find all the funding opportunities are targeting the young on the grounds that the young need it more. But I'm telling you, if you have a toxic head of department, doesn't matter how many training courses you send your young person on, is not going to have any effect. But I would like to address, I think it's Paul. He says in the chat, you need access to internet so you can point. Yes. I would like to talk about what I used to call the digital divide, but now I call it digital apartheid, because we have some who have access and others who don't. We've already had a couple of presenters mention the fact that the internet is unstable, or in the case of Omar, your screen froze at my end for some time. This is something that is real. The cost of internet, the bandwidth availability, the speed, these are all things which are added to all the other problems that the African researcher or practitioner suffers. So we, as I said, we need to look at the problem holistically. If we are going to be able to compete with the rest of the world within the next 20 years, we need to do things differently. And there's another question down there. It says, what changes from is it Garth? Yes. Changes do you suggest to move our educational system from its current state, innovative or adaptive problem solvers? Yeah, so again, the solution is, you put it, we need to use problem-based learning. We need to start letting the young people learning teams. We need peer-to-peer learning, 360 learning. We need scaffolded and cascaded learning. They're all techniques that have been used successfully in many of the countries that are progressing. But one of the reasons that they progress is that they have a very solid foundation right from the kindergarten, as has been mentioned in the write-up, through to the primary and secondary schools. So by the time they come to us at the universities, they have all those skills of open mind, challenging authority, and then this goes into the business and entrepreneurship sphere. When people ask the question, why do we have to do it this way? Is there possibly a better way? And be able to take the risk to try. And if they fail, to accept that the failure is a learning experience, not something that diminishes them as human beings. But so long as we use this examination system, where first past the post means that you have to do a certain career and so on, we are never going to move from where we are. Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the first sign of insanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. I'm still coming back to you, Prof, finally, because I want you to shed some light more on what you referred to in our discussion before the session. You mentioned the disruptive education. I want you to conceptualize that for us, and I will get back to you on that.
Okay. Well, they say we need to have transformative education where we do things different, but sometimes you have to break it and build it up again, and that is what I call disruptive education, where maybe we should let the students test the professors and assess them in terms of their knowledge using the internet as a base. We should, I don't want to preach revolution in education because I'm likely to be one of the people who will be under the guillotine. But I think this is something that the young people need to come up with something. And I run a series of workshops over the past month or so, where rather than going into the meeting with a predefined discussion question or whatever, we allow the participants to come up with a question they want to discuss within the overall theme. And sometimes what they brought up for discussion is far different from what we originally thought would have been important to them. So I think the answer to your question is we should go back to the stakeholders of importance, i.e. the next generation of thinkers, and ask them, what would you change to make your education more relevant, more practical, more lucrative than it is now? And you may find that rather than having formal classes, they may want to do the entire course by experiential learning. So that's what I'll say to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Ne, in terms of doing things differently, because we've said that is what we need to do. We cannot continue with the old ways of doing, and I think that's why also the circular economy is important. And how does this reflect from the standpoint of what Prof just said? How does it reflect on what ALU is doing and how you try to do things differently? While we are trying to wrap up, I think that and giving you your final word also. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I really loved hearing the professor speak, and it really resonates a lot with what I personally believe in, and also what we do at the with ALU, we have completely changed our educational system and program where, first of all, our students don't graduate for a degree, but a major or a mission that they choose based on missions, global opportunities, and global challenges that we have formulated, which are very much aligned with the SDGs. And what we're currently doing, we're trying to move away from this notion of the professor, the lecturer is the one that knows it all and will come and tell the student what they need to learn. No, we want to give the ownership back to the student themselves. So we curate courses or modules for them with some suggested resources that we think would cover the foundational knowledge that they would need to understand a certain topic. And from there on, we create learning contracts with them where they take ownership of their own learning and go out and curate for themselves resources that they believe fits within their mission and what they want to learn. And the teacher is mainly a facilitator helping out the student on their journey of learning, which for me personally is a very new, unique way of teaching, which I'm completely not used to, but I see the strength in it and I see the potential in it. So yes, I just wanted to share that also to shed light on what we're doing right now.
Thanks. Thanks so
Daniel,
much, Dr.
can I follow on? Do we have time?
Yes, please. Yes, please, Prof.
Okay. We run a PhD course. We do 1 year PhD coursework at my university. And we run a course on ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. And the way this course has been run by myself is that we go to a district, I suppose that would be a county in Kenya, and the students have to come up with a disaster risk management plan for the area. So we give them the theoretical information that they can refer to as and when needed, but then they have to go to the field, interview people, do a risk assessment, do a GIS mapping, and so forth. But the twist in this is when they finish, their output is then assessed, not solely by academics, but they have to present to the management of the district at one of their formal meetings and do a presentation and give a report. And it is the people on the ground who then say what you've done is workable, is useful, and that is where they pass or fail. So it has to be embedded with the relevance and need of the people. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Prof. I think you have also linked it back to the relevance of whatever we are doing to the society and trying to establish that. Even so, in our thinking, even within the 4 walls of the university or outside, we need to, and I think it's also the question that we have been asking our entrepreneurs, like, what is the benefit of this to the society? What the idea that you have, the circular economy idea that you have, what is the relevance to society? What are you selling to the society? And I think it's always good, even as researchers, as practitioners within the circular economy space, whatever knowledge idea, we have to always come back to that question. Okay, so I'd like to ask, as we're rounding off now because of time, I'd like to ask Omar to give his final words, reflecting on human capital and how we need to do that differently for circular economy transition.
Just one question from, I think, Sese, about how do you choose the potential industry to implement circular economy? Well, like I said, it all depends on the baseline study that you go for. I said maybe the one with the highest potential is the worst company, or the worst aspect, or the worst area where you find a lot of ideas that can be implemented, a lot of strategies that can be implemented. So it's subjective to where you are, the area you are in, the industries or whatever you are looking for. As for the closing remarks, well, capacity building, academia linked with courses and everything else, long life learning, that's what would foster and help advance our circular knowledge and make it more related to the practical life. Sometimes we have academia or the courses or even the industry playmakers decoupled from each other, which is an issue. We have to somehow make sure that they're all linked and integrated along with government support. There should be one vision, one way, one roadmap. And this is the way to having a successful implementation of any project. And circular transition needs that. Nothing is perfect. There is a lot of potential. There is a lot of opportunities there. Like we said, there are risks, but there are opportunities. Don't wait for the opportunity. Create it yourself. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that final words. I'll go to Dr. for final parting words, even as we are wrapping up the session.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Well, I would say that I think for what we need within the continent of Africa, we need a system, an educational system that is supporting students not only on what the professor was saying, teaching from the books and just basically repeating what is already said, but thinking outside of the box, critical thinking, seeing what their communities actually need, what solutions are necessary for their communities from the grassroots level. And that's how we can actually help the continent transition and come with solutions that are actually needed rather than imported from the West. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Dr. Nee. Finally, before I wrap up, I'd like to invite Prof. Chris Gordon to hear from you for the last time, your final parting words.
Okay, well, as somebody who has meddled in business in the past, it all comes down to the money. If you want anything to be taken up by business, they don't do it as a charity. There has to be some value, either social capital, or there should be some monetary value that is very clear that the effort in engaging is worth their time. If you don't have that, then all you do is have a project with some funding. Once the funding is over, everything goes back to the way it was before. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I wrap up, I would like to want my colleagues to share again the survey that we have. We've got a reflection survey that we want you to complete for us. It's going to just take 3 minutes of your time to reflect on how the session has been, whether it's been helpful and interesting for you. Please, I want to implore us to assist us and complete the survey. And I think a lot of issues have been raised today, but and a lot of things have been emphasized in terms of also looking at the new ways of doing things. When we talk about the new ways of doing things, we have to also talk about the new ways of learning. And that is why I think what Prof has said about disruptive education, we need to pay attention to that and how that it is important that learning is a continuous thing and to emphasize the importance of lifelong learning so that we don't have decision makers at the helm of affairs who do not actually appreciate and understand why it is important to hem into our practice new ways of thinking and new ways of doing things. So on that note, I want to wrap up today's session and say that thank you very much for joining us, and let us continue to work together for the good of our continent, Africa. Let us continue to innovate. Let us continue to think, and let us continue to act for the good of Africa. And we hope that you will join us next time and next month when we are having another session. Thanks, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.